we refer to SubtleData as a platform as a service. What that means is we write the back-end software that mobile applications use to present functionality to users through the mobile device. Some of the software that we write that sits in the back end of the system is integration with point-of-sale systems. For example, if you have a dinerware, a Micros, or a POSitouch system, you can actually have mobile applications developed on the SubtleData platform deployed so that way the mobile application talks to the dinerware, the Micros, or the POSitouch system. In addition to that, we have developed our own cloud-based point-of-sale, and the reason for that was because most point-of-sale systems were not designed and developed for the cloud. Our cloud-based point-of-sale was developed specifically to allow mobile devices to interact with them, such as iPads, iPhones, the iPod Touch, Android devices, Blackberries, and things like that. Some of the other software that we do on the back end are things like user management, loyalty programs, and ways for mobile developers to access information about a user and interact with the user without having to store that information on the phone. Now you may be asking yourself, how do the apps get built? Because it doesn't sound like SubtleData actually builds the apps. And that is correct. We don't actually build the apps. What we do is we have the back end that the apps plug into. And so what we do is we rely on a certified developer network. It's very similar to how Apple has structured their developer program, in the fact that we review every app that is submitted. We certify the apps to make sure that they meet our standards, so that way when they use our API that they're calling it effectively and efficiently and properly. We test each and every app to make sure that it performs well. We don't want you getting an app and end up having issues with it because it wasn't tested well enough, and so we actually add an extra layer of testing, which is really nice for the developers because it helps them catch any little minor bugs that might have slipped through during their testing process. And we provide an app store for apps that use our platforms. So that way if you're looking for apps that do takeout and to-go ordering, we can provide that type of information to you. If you're looking for apps that do simply just loyalty, or if you want to have integrated swipe technology so that way at the table you can swipe credit cards for guests that come in, we can provide that information to you as well. So how does an app use SubtleData? You may have heard the term API, Application Programming Interface. That is kind of a nebulous term that's thrown around, and what it means is the access that one application has to another without going through a user interface. The API is completely programmatically accessed. It doesn't require human intervention, and it's something that allows one app to send and receive information to another. So all of the apps that use SubtleData connect to our API, and we ask that they are connected using SSL. Some of the calls that are sent have very benign information, and so you don't have to use SSL, which keeps the size of the payload and the amount of processing power needed down. It actually speeds things up. But as they post data into our API, we have a proprietary format that we came up with. It's extremely small, uses negative consent. It's about 65% smaller than XML. It's about 35% smaller than JSON. If you are not an application developer and you're a merchant listening to this, what it means is the app is going to react extremely fast. It's not going to have any delays because if you think about it, we're sending and receiving web pages between the app and the SubtleData API. And the smaller the web pages that we send, the faster it'll go. So we've really maximized the cellular network because there's a 1,500 byte packet that's sent back and forth, and we allow those packets to be filled with as much as possible to get as much work done without being extremely bloated and fat. So the big question, how much does it cost? Well, good news is that most of the API calls have no charge associated with them. For user creation, authentication, if somebody's at a restaurant and they need to view a menu, that's stuff that is basically our freebie to the mobile application developer and their clients. Some of the calls do cost a tiny bit. So if you're ordering an item, say a beer at a restaurant, or paying with a credit card to close your tab out, we do charge a very small amount for that. It's less than a penny in most cases. We charge the mobile app company on a monthly basis, and so what will happen is you'll see charges accrue based on the usage of the app. So if nobody is using the app that month, there's no charge for it. It's a very, very simple process. We've kept the costs extremely low, and we hope that this will allow for a lot of apps to be developed. So what are the next steps to access SubtleData? Well, if you're a developer, simply visit SubtleData.com and sign up for a free account. You'll be able to download the documentation in a PDF format, or you can even access it online in real time. There's a search for it. It gives you the structure for sending and receiving calls. It's extremely easy to understand. We've really spent a lot of time in our documentation area. You'll develop your app and then simply deploy it to SubtleData using TestFlight. If you go to testflightapp.com, you can deploy to a variety of different devices, and we'll give you the information as to which devices we'd like you to add, so that way we can do the testing as well. If you are a merchant or a retailer, look through the SubtleData website and find the pages that are under the merchant section, and when it looks for your information at the bottom, just simply fill it out and we'll get in touch with you and introduce you to some of these wonderful app developers. You can also just send an email to merchants@subtledata.com and we'll respond to you very, very quickly. Well, we thank you for reviewing this overview of SubtleData, and if you have any questions or we missed anything or you need any information, please send us an email. The address is info@subtledata.com.